every part. It's in the air I breathe. Can't sleep anymore. Take it from my energy. Sucking up memory. Erase you go now. Spirit, spiritual. I'm feeling good. All of my all of my sit up on the keep it. You know, I'm in your nation. Oh, you know, take it slow, below. Yeah. Like the spirit.
Hello, everybody.
Jesse, give us a minute.
Okay, no problem.
Want to wait until the room fills up a bit. And listening to Ashanti Energy.
Nice.
All right. Did you see the news about an AI-powered radio station? I guess all the DJs are going to be out of business soon. Welcome to Uphold. This is our first irregular, super exciting Twitter space. And we are welcoming today the CEO of EnergyWeb, Jesse Morris. Welcome to Uphold, Jesse.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here, and hello to everybody, and great to be a part of the Uphold community. We're really excited.
Yeah, we are known for not messing about with shitcoins. We are known for utility. And Energy Web really excites me because it's one of these things that really do good, right? And I love blockchain projects that do good. How did you get down the rabbit hole? What's your background, your pre-crypto existence? I'm always
Yeah,
curious.
that's a great question. So, I am not a crypto or technology guy by background. I am a climate and energy guy. So I started my career straight out of university almost 14, 15 years ago now, really just jumping straight into energy. I worked for a solar company. I worked for a number of different consulting shops that were trying to help energy companies make money on things like electric vehicles and batteries. And then I spent a number of years at one of the biggest nonprofits focused on renewables and climate in the US called RMI. What I kept running into in my work to try and help businesses, again, just make money on things like energy efficiency, renewables, electric vehicles, was that most of the energy companies that are going to be at the forefront of this transition away from fossil fuels and towards things like solar and wind, um, they're going to need a lot of software
So,
to do that
so
because we're moving to, yeah,
when
yeah,
we say
go ahead.
energy transition, we mean exactly that, moving away from fossil fuels.
Yes,
Okay.
I apologize. So I'll definitely be jumping back and forth between kind of crypto speak and energy speak,
And
but on the energy side,
I'm going to
yes.
interrupt
Yeah,
you, and
yeah.
I think you need to explain something for the wider audience. It's right there on your mission. I love your website, by the way. It says why we exist. Most crypto projects have no idea why they exist. You have a very clear you have a very clear mission.
Yes, well, I hope so. And before I ramble too much about energy transition, I'll put it really simply. When I was working personally with a lot of these energy companies to try and help them figure out how to make money on all of these technologies that are going to get us out of the climate crisis, it became very clear very quickly that they were going to need a massive amount of software. Because the way that we run the grid, the way that we run all of these complex energy supply chains is today unbelievably analog. But that is not very sustainable because if you look at the future, we're going to be moving, and we are already moving to a system in which billions of very small assets, again, if anybody on this line has an electric vehicle charging station, a heat pump, a battery, a rooftop solar system,
So,
those distributed assets are going to form the basis of the grid. And if we want to help utilities actually use those things to balance the grid, we need a totally different way of operating it that is digital. So that's where Energy Web started. We said we want to bring digital, including Web3, blockchain, and crypto technologies into the mix here to give utilities a totally different way of operating their systems.
um, I just thought of something that actually Uphold Securities, our institutional arm based in New York. We also do analyst calls in the energy sector, alternative energy sector. Maybe we need to get you one of those too. So,
Mm.
why is, I mean, a car is basically a computer on wheels these days. I fully get the point where we need to move away from analog. Can you give us some concrete examples of how that works for different energy sources? And then I'm adding a second question here. Why do this with crypto? You
Awesome.
okay, go ahead.
Yes. And maybe I'll split that answer, Martin,
Yeah.
by talking first just about what we do,
Hmm.
because that will hopefully help explain it. And then let me talk about how, because that's where crypto, and specifically in our case, Energy Web Token comes in.
Hmm.
Um, so, quick example for what we do. I'm going to go down to Australia. I'm sitting here in California, so it is the other side of the planet, but we do a lot of work in Australia, and we actually have a team in country there. In Australia, over half of the energy in many parts of the state of the country comes from rooftop solar. That's crazy, right? There's no other place in the world at that big of a geographic scale where there's that deep of a penetration of renewable
When
energy.
you got space and they got
The tri-
sun, right? And they got bungalows.
yeah,
Lots and
that's
lots
right.
of bungalows in Australia with flat roofs.
Lots of bungalows, lots of flat roofs, and lots of cheap solar on them. Yeah, it's amazing. What's happening there, though, is that there's so much solar on the system that the utilities don't know what to do with all of it. And on the other side, there are many, many batteries. So think of things like Tesla has a product called Powerwall, or
Is
there's
that
these
the
other
one in Adelaide?
companies.
The big battery in Adelaide?
So there are very big batteries, right, that are connected to these big transmission substations that you might see as you're driving by the road with lots of hard infrastructure.
Uh-huh.
But there's also millions of small batteries sitting in people's basements
Uh-huh.
that are right now glorified paperweights. They basically sit there, they'll turn on if the grid goes down,
Yeah.
but they're not really doing anything else.
Yeah.
What they could be doing is soaking up all that excess solar, right? So, what we're doing is giving the utilities in Australia a tool to coordinate and network together all of these different distributed assets. Because think about it, right now, you've got millions of different Australian households, each with their own solar system, each with their own battery, manufactured by different companies, installed by different companies, managed by different retailers. You've got 25 different electric utilities that actually manage the wires that move the power from where it's generated to where it needs to be. And it's just really confusing for all of those different assets to be actually exchanging data with one another, for
Can
them to be
imagine.
trusting one another. So that's where we come in. We come in with a digital solution that makes it really easy for all of those different batteries, solar systems, and the businesses that operate them, basically to just exchange data so that the different utilities can trust that, hey, that battery is where it says it is and can do what it says it can do. Therefore, I can trust it to soak up some of that excess solar. So that's kind of the future we're building towards, is giving utilities the ability to network together millions of these really small assets and use those to balance the grid instead of cranking up and down a really big
Yeah.
gas or coal-fired power plant. So that's what we do.
So, if you let me put this in my mind frame, in the early 2000s, Germany started out producing solar on a massive scale, then got completely outbid by the Chinese. I was back then in Taiwan. I was working with semiconductor companies, and it was a big solar panel boom. And in Europe, there were subsidies. So you could get subsidies, and the energy companies promised you they will buy back the extra electricity. Um, So it's basically all that was a Web 2-like contract between the energy company and you. Now, do I get this right? What you're doing is connecting all these dots, so I have control over my power output and can do with it what I want. Is that correct?
Unfortunately, I'm going to paint an even worse picture for
Go
you
ahead.
about what the grid looks like now. So I think you're giving too much credit to the way that most of the way that the grid runs operates today. I'm just going to use myself as an example.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting here in California, which is supposedly the most advanced electricity market in the world. If we were sitting together, Martin, I would be putting up my hands, making quotation marks around that word advanced. Um, I have a rooftop solar system. I have an electric vehicle, I have a charging station, and I have a heat pump that controls my heating and cooling. And each of those assets, the utility should be paying me
Yeah.
for the ability for those assets to balance the grid. They don't even know that I have them, right? I
Yeah.
have three different utilities. They don't know that I have them. They don't have the ability to communicate with them, to exchange data with them. So, in your example, was there a paper contract for German households who had a solar system and were getting paid a certain rate? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But was it even digitized in a Web 2
No.
sense? Forget about it,
No.
right?
Yeah.
So that the starting point's even lower than I think a lot of people imagine in most places around the world.
Many people complained that they didn't get the right rate and they didn't get back the money. And then of course, the more solar installations there were, the more supply there was. And then, prices kept going low and people were hugely dissatisfied. And this whole solar boom has sort of stalled here. And I absolutely think that Energy Web's approach here could revive this thing. Um, what can I do now? So how does it look like for you now if you use Energy Web solution as an individual with all these devices that you have installed?
Well, I want to talk about the crypto side of it
Mm-hmm.
because it's a really important piece of the equation.
Yep.
But before that, let's just talk about Energy Web is a business to business Web3 project, which is very different from any others out there. Our impact to change is getting these large utilities to adopt our software. And so, for example, in Germany, in Australia, if our solution is running, you shouldn't even know necessarily that Energy Web or Energy Web token is being used in the background. All you should be able to see as a homeowner or a business owner that has an electric vehicle or solar systems, you should be able to participate in local programs that will effectively pay you in order for your assets to be helping to balance the grid. So if you got to explain it to your grandmother or to your parent, what's all this crazy stuff Jesse's talking about? Years from now, all we're trying to make it possible is so that, again, businesses or people that have these assets are basically being paid to help balance the grid. That's it. Shows up as a credit on your electricity bill and you move away. Now, behind the scenes, that's where everybody on this call and technically everybody on the planet actually has a role to play. So if I flip over from talking about what we do, which is helping these utilities basically have a new tool for managing the grid, how we do it is a very novel structure that uses Energy Web tokens and uses crypto and Web3 architectures. So basically, what was just announced today, actually for everybody that is on this session, we just announced the release of a really interesting new piece of technology that is now forming the core of every single solution we bring to market. And that's this thing called worker nodes. And the way these worker nodes work is that basically you go out, take Energy Web tokens, and then they can be directly staked onto these things called worker nodes. And what worker nodes do in a sentence is they perform useful work for these energy companies. So if you think about, the Bitcoin protocol, or if you think about the protocol on the Energy Web chain, those protocols are basically performing pretty simple work. They're solving a hashing algorithm and sealing blocks, right? That's how many blockchains work.
Yeah, but
Energy companies don't really care about that, right? If you think about the use cases I was just describing, we're trying to give people, utilities, the ability to coordinate all of these different distributed assets all across the planet. A blockchain that is just sealing blocks, that's not very useful work for them. So what we released today, again, the technology is called a worker node. These workers perform useful work for those energy companies. In the Australian example I described, these worker nodes are just making it possible for all the data coming from all these different assets to be trusted and anonymized.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, if I were to kind of tie it together, this year, people will be able to take their Energy Web tokens, stake them, run one of these worker nodes, and then these utilities will basically be paying those worker nodes to perform that work. And I can give lots of examples about what kind of work these worker nodes do, but this is a very different kind of spin on other Web3 and crypto projects. What we have discovered is that if you take these Web3 concepts of thousands of different computers running a shared protocol, but then apply that to specific business functions, that's an amazingly powerful use case for enterprises. So that's kind of the specific way, if I were to tie it all together, we have these worker nodes, they're performing specific work that these energy companies need, but those nodes need to be distributed. They need to be decentralized. So in order to do that, people take Energy Web tokens, they stake them, they're trusted to run one of these nodes, and we're off to the races. So the first piece of that puzzle was released. The first piece of that puzzle was released today with these worker nodes. And that's, sorry, go ahead, Martin.
What is the work that energy companies need?
So let me give a couple of examples.
Please.
I'll give a really simple one, really simple one, right? One of the other applications that we bring to market is called green proofs. And that's about creating proofs that something green happened in the world. One of the things that's happening right now, and this is very big with the Googles and Microsofts of the world, is they are beginning to claim that their data centers are powered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by renewable energy. And if you go to Microsoft or Google's website right now about they call it 24/7 renewable energy consumption, there'll be a nice user interface that shows their data centers, and they're just claiming that those data centers are powered 100% by renewables. I would challenge anyone on this call to go verify that because you can't. Right? It's a simple Web2 interface, and there's no transparency behind the scenes. What we have done.
That's the whole reason why companies are pulling out of the ESG debate, right? ESG is
basically
about emissions, and that's the only thing that counts. And there's no proof that you're actually reducing emissions. Yeah, it's a marketing gimmick.
Exactly. Yes. So what our solutions are trying to do with the help of these worker nodes is go beyond a marketing gimmick.
Yeah.
So we've taken that 24/7 concept, and we're now applying these worker nodes to it. So imagine a box, and that box is a network of thousands of these worker nodes. And on one side, you've got data coming in about buildings. How much electricity are they using? And then on the other side, you've got data going into that box, which is data from these renewable energy assets, wind and solar farms. The work that's being performed by these worker nodes is basically like almost like matching on a cryptocurrency exchange. It's matching the renewable energy with the information about how much electricity is being consumed. And it's being done by thousands of these different worker nodes, and it's done in a decentralized and transparent way so that other people can come in and say, oh, yep, that building is using renewables from that asset, and that building is using renewables from that asset. There's no double counting. It's not some marketing gimmick. So the work that's being performed is actually matching, in this case, renewable energy generation and demand, and the public can verify it. So this is really an amazing use case of Web3 technology. And that's just one example of several others that we have that we're applying these worker nodes against.
It is amazing. It makes it measurable, quantifiable. It's the perfect use case for Web3. I'm impressed, yeah. So if I've got a house in the sticks and I've got a few hundred EWT tokens, how do I get involved with these worker nodes? What do I have to do?
So right now, there's a direct staking option. It's called our green pool. If you just kind of Google that on Google, you'll find this green pool. And this is the first version of it, where these tokens can actually be staked to support these worker nodes I'm describing. What's coming is that there will soon be a full marketplace.
And when I Google green pool, I get information about algae in pools. How do I remove algae from my pool?
Let me be more precise. I'll be more precise. If you go to energyweb.org/staking.
Okay.
Although algae is pretty cool. We could talk a lot about algae and biofuels, but that's probably not what the listeners are interested in. Yeah. So yeah, energyweb.org/staking is the first area where you can get engaged with what I'm describing. Now, what's coming, just to preview it a little bit, is I just described this 24/7 work, right? We've identified many different ways that these worker nodes can be configured, and our vision is to eventually have dozens of these networks of worker nodes performing different kinds of work. So what our team's building right now, think of it like a marketplace. You're going to be able to go to a marketplace and you'll be able to find different use cases from around the world that you can stake your energy web tokens against to perform useful work in these different areas. So right now, it's a basic version of that. You can go check it out. But this is what our team is heads down on building for the next couple of quarters.
I just did. I clicked on stake. It says MetaMask is not installed. I know what we need to do now without saying it out loud. But obviously, obviously, I know what I have on my to-do list. You just gave me more work for Uphold. Jesus Christ, it never stops.
Well, I didn't mean to do that.
No, you did that. Yeah. So, where you mentioned Australia, where are you running? And is there anything outside solar? What other energy sources are you working with? Or is there more?
Definitely.
Go on.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'll try and keep it coming back to the crypto piece of this with these worker nodes, because I know that's very relevant for this audience. So 24/7 renewable energy matching, that doesn't care if it's solar or wind or biomass. There's a lot of solutions out there focused on that. I could flip over. Let's talk about planes for a minute. I was just on a plane the other day. We have a similar solution where we're helping very large participants in the aviation space fully decarbonize their fuel. So just to spend a minute talking about planes, when we all put our butts in the seats on planes or ship stuff using planes, all of that fuel, or 99.99% of that fuel today, comes from oil, right? It's called jet fuel. The leading way to decarbonize aviation is for a lot of that fuel to start coming from different feedstocks that have a lower carbon footprint. So things like a new generation of biofuels is what a lot of companies are building around. The trick there, just like with the 24/7 case, and also, Martin, with some of the other broader ESG issues you were flagging, how do you know that fuel is actually coming from a field somewhere and then being processed and put into a plane versus some other part? That's a very complicated supply chain. So one of our other solutions is we have built a registry that's meant for every aviation company around the world to be able to use to track and trace what's called sustainable aviation fuel. Now, so this is another solution. It uses the same kind of technology I described before, and there will be a set of worker nodes performing a slightly different set of work this time. Basically, what those nodes are going to be doing is just checking that the different companies basically are not trying to spoof the system, to put it very simply. The workers are going to be monitoring these different companies that are uploading data about aviation fuel. So that's another piece of work that people will be able to stake tokens against to support that work. And it's solving a real business problem, which is bringing transparency to a totally new supply chain, which is the supply chain of sustainable aviation fuel.
I've seen a few companies doing that. Does this have anything to do with carbon credits too?
So let's open that can of worms.
I've always been very skeptical when I book a flight and they tell me pay a little more and we offset your journey in carbon credit. I don't trust these people. What are they offsetting exactly? Where's the proof that they're doing something?
Neither do I. Neither do I. And especially if we start layering on some of the crypto projects that have been coming onto this. What I just described is not an offset. So this is actually called, I like to think of it as an inset. So what happens here is businesses or people will be able to spend a little bit more money in order for a verified unit of fuel to be purchased. So like again, if you're sitting on a plane and you purchase an offset, you're basically trusting that some trees will be planted somewhere or some other carbon sequestration project will happen somewhere. What I'm talking about here is a verifiable way for a user to purchase a digital certificate representing a physical unit of sustainable fuel that's powering your airplane. So that's an inset because you can actually verify it's a new unit of fuel that otherwise wouldn't have been there unless you executed the transaction. So it's very different. These offsets, it's challenging, right?
Uh-huh.
I know there's a lot of Web3 projects basically trying to tokenize carbon credits to try and help in that space. Before we, even talking about all these Web3 projects and crypto projects there, you said it, Martin. The offset space is really faces a lot of different measurement, reporting, and verification challenges. So where we're focused is more on the inset side of the equation because it's much more tangible to be able to look at somebody with a straight face and say, hey, you paid 1, 5, 10% more for a specific service, and I'm going to give you a proof of the product that you actually bought.
Yeah.
That's where we're focused.
Yeah, that makes much more sense. And that makes this is what the whole transition from Web 2 to 3 is really about. It's not about fucking NFTs and stuff. It is about uh, accountability. Accountability towards the user and breaking up your like one-way relationship with a big energy provider, with a big company.
That's been our experience.
Yeah.
That's certainly been our experience. And look, as Energy Web, when we approach these energy companies, they don't care about the metaverse. They don't care about generic NFT platforms. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe something will emerge there. I don't want to completely shoot that kind of innovation in the foot, but our focus as a community and as an organization has been relentless, which is these energy companies have challenges, mainly around transparency, like you described, that need to be overcome. And that's where we come in with a solution that uses these Web3 technologies in a novel way.
Fantastic. I just looked at your I just looked at your Meet Our Team page. And honestly, I've never seen a more based crypto team anywhere. I'm like analyzing 20 projects a week, and many of their websites are just so complete crap with avatars and some weird bored apes as a picture of some person. But here, there's real people here. I'm already in love with the project. There's real people here. I'm old-fashioned. I like those
Well, it has to be that way, right? The only way we're going to be successful as a community is if enterprises are using our technology.
Correct.
And if I'm walking around with a metaverse avatar to introduce myself, it's probably going to scare away the chief information officer of some of the biggest energy companies in the world.
You would. Anything else you want to share? We've got a few minutes left.
Um, I don't think so, Martin. I mean, thanks for the opportunity to come on here. Hopefully, it wasn't too confusing. Again, if you walk away from this conversation with one thing for all the listeners, it would be that we really are focused at Energy Web as an organization and a community on actually solving real problems with Web3 technology. We do not just do stuff and hope that marketing will produce some significant outcome.
Love
We
it.
are genuinely devoted to solving problems with these different companies. And I would encourage, everybody, we have a couple of really exciting new organizations coming into the fold. One is a very large communications infrastructure organization that we'll be partnering with shortly, and another is one of the world's largest technology consultancies. We as Energy Web can't do everything I'm talking about alone, so we really live and die on many of our partnerships.
Yeah.
So for those new to the Energy Web community from Uphold, just keep an eye on our comms, and we've got a lot of really interesting stuff coming down the pipe.
Super. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to ping you later about setting up a meeting with the institutional team. This has been fantastic. Thank you very much. Energy Web is available now on Uphold. I made sure of that. For 2 weeks already. Go and buy some EWT. That is not financial advice. There's no rocket, no emojis. I'm just saying, it's a good project. Come on, guys. Stop messing about with silly NFTs and pixelated crypto shit. Go, save the world. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you,
Thank you for
everyone, for
having us, Martin.
listening.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.